And now I am very excited here because I am joined right here at the anchor desk by one of the greatest photojournalists of all time, perhaps the most widely published of all time, Ron Laytner. Welcome to Newsmax TV, sir. It's an honor to have you here, and we're so glad to have you because Ron's got a new book out entitled Pictures to Die For: Photos and Stories from the World's Most Published Photojournalist. It's available right now. And Ron, it's so good to have you. Now, it is said you cannot judge a book by its cover, but I look at this picture on the cover and I know you've got a great story behind it. Tell us what's on the cover and what you were doing.
Okay, this is my wife Linda and I on our honeymoon, and we wanted to do something different, something that would pay for a trip around the world. And cause a lot of ruckus, which it did. So we took 2 submachine guns and 2 pistols in our bag through airports around the world.
Now this is what, the early 70s, before there was a lot of airport security?
This was before there was hardly any airport security, but every week there was a hijacking in those days. So it was even more dangerous. But we managed to get through, and we changed airport security all over the world. The Secret Service director flew us to Washington and commended us and told us we changed everything.
Now, I got to imagine for a honeymoon, I can understand financially and from the journalism angle, but was your wife all in on doing this to pay for the honeymoon?
Well, you can see she didn't look too thrilled.
Well, I know it might have been a challenge to ensure domestic tranquility, but you got it done, you got the story done, and the cover is just as striking as the rest of the book. I want to go back in time. There's a photo you took, being Canadian, and there's that cover. But again, there's another photo we want to look at, the Canadian brownie kicking the Girl Scout. This picture just showed up everywhere. It won Canada's top prize, Canadian National Newspaper Award, Life magazine, Best of Life. It continues to live on. When you think back to that picture, what made it come together in terms of timing, and why do you think there's such an appeal for that photo?
It shows rebellion in a little girl. I was going to get $3 if the picture was published. I've made about 90,000 out of that picture over the years.
Wow.
But what it showed was a little girl standing at a Girl Guide inspection. And I thought, this is nothing. And I walked around the back and I thought, nothing. And all of a sudden, one little girl put her foot up like that and put it down. And I thought, oh my God, I just missed a picture of a lifetime. Then I thought, I have 3 sisters. If they got away with it, they'd do it again. And I waited, sure enough, bam, and got the picture. And then 10 years later, I was in London on a rainy night, and I heard 2 girls crying behind me, about 19 years old. And I got them, they were waiting for money from Canada. I brought them in to a hotel, got them a dinner, let them sleep on part of my bed, on the lower part. I slept on a mattress. I was trying to help them because they were Canadians. They said, what's the best picture you ever took in your life? One girl said, and I said it was a brownie kicking a Girl Guide in Toronto. She said, it wasn't Toronto, it was Thornhill, Ontario. I'm the brownie.
Wow. So the girl who was in the picture in later life, you encountered her.
That's
wow.
Right.
Some of these things, you know, you talk about timing for photographs, but you have lived a life and taken pictures that just incredible. One person called you, I believe it was the editor of Paris Match, said, you're the James Bond of photography. You got that picture of Carlos the Jackal. And I just have to ask you about something in the news today.
Sure.
Before we get back to the book. You hear all this talk about fake news and the internet, and now it seems the American left has taken this on as the cause celeb. News they disagree with is fake news. Isn't it better for a consumer to be able to take a look at things and try to verify it themselves to decide?
Well, I've worked for some of the greatest newspapers in the world, and we used to cover the news. We didn't make news. And fake news is happening all the time on some of the biggest newspapers. And it's a very, very ugly thing. You know, all my life was spent being honest in the news, covering it. What's the real story? But these guys take advantage and get into politics. And I really worry about newspapers. Things are bad.
And everything is changing now to the internet. Photography has changed. Now, digital photography. I would imagine everything you did was the dark room, the traditional form of photography. What do you think now about digitizing photos, Photoshop, all the things that can be done with images?
Well, I remember actually being in the jungle, developing at night with a hood over my head.
Wow.
To get pictures. Now you can take a picture and in Timbuktu, and it'll be in a space shuttle flight, and they can see it.
You mentioned the jungle, and I'm hoping we can get this picture up, because you said one of your favorite photos is the picture of a child standing between the legs of a lion hunter. I presume that was taken in the jungle. The story behind this picture, very briefly, and what do you think it conveys?
Well, this little girl was in a village in which 8 people were eaten by a man-eating lion. And her sister was among them. We came into the village, everybody was locked in their huts, and this little girl, we made a fire to make tea, and the little girl was so fascinated, she came up and stood there and kept looking and had her hand around the knee. You see how small she was. It's one of my favorite pictures in my life.
And conversely, we understand that Queen Elizabeth has a photo that you took. It's one of her favorites that hangs in Buckingham Palace. There's Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. How does it feel to you to know that one of your photos is hanging at Buckingham Palace? We've got about a minute and a half left here.
Okay. Well, she loved the picture, and because of it, she allowed me to be the press photographer for when there was a storm and 80 people drowned. And I was backing into the room and I stepped on her foot.
Oh my goodness. What did you say?
Duh.
You couldn't even imagine a story? I mean, but I'm sure she's such a stately lady, she just moved right on.
No, she couldn't. I was standing on her foot.
Still standing on, oh wow.
So Prince Philip said, "Get off the Queen's foot." I picked my foot up and it was the wrong foot.
Oh
so now
no.
all my weight was on her and she said a bad word.
Oh, well, it's a family program. I guess to find out the word, we need to pick up a copy of this great book, Pictures to Die For. Ron Laytner is the author. Pictures to Die For, photos and stories from the world's most published photojournalist. And Ron, we look forward to your sequel. Before we got on camera, you were talking about putting together your next book, Pictures to Live For. That will be great.
What a job this was, 5 years.
Oh, I bet. And they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I bet the words you put together with this book make it wonderful reading, and we're so honored to have you with us today, Ron. Bless you, sir. It's great to have you. Ron Laytner, one of the world's great photographers. What a thrill. Good to have him here. We're coming back with more. It's America Talks Live, a prime preview in this day in history, right after this.